How's it going on? This is Adam Roosevelt. I want to address everyone in regards to the Build Back Better Puerto Rico discussion. Today's agenda, I'll go ahead and lay it out. I'm going to give a little bit about me and who I am. I'm going to talk about my purpose here, and then I'm going to go into the Build Back Better strategy developed by the governor of Puerto Rico's office and company organizations who assisted with putting that document together. So my name is Adam Roosevelt. I am the candidate for the House, or was the candidate for the House of Delegates. I became the nominee in 2017. So I've got some experience in the political field here in Virginia. I served in the United States military working with the NATO partners there overseas and did a few tours to Afghanistan. But more than that, I'm a father to a young little girl named Maya Bella, who is Puerto Rican. She's Puerto Rican by descent, and I want to make sure that when she has a need to go out there and serve her community, we can build the foundation there. So I am a father, former military person, also NATO person out there, and politician. My purpose in this life, I'll just tell everybody, is to take on difficult projects. The campaign was very difficult. NATO was very difficult. We survived the war, and now we're here to take on difficult projects to help our country move forward and help our territories, rebuild and reconstruct that critical infrastructure, as well as develop the necessary partnerships in the global arena. So let's go ahead and dive right in. First, I'd like to say thank you to the President of the United States for the work that the administration is doing. I'd like to say thank you to the governor of Puerto Rico and the organizations and associations that are working to put together the necessary strategy. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. Many of you may not be aware, but there has been a document developed in 2017 by the governor, Ricardo Rosello, and his folks that are assisting there. It's called the Build Back Better Puerto Rico. They released it in 2017 in November. It lays out the strategy here, the request for federal assistance for disaster recovery. If you haven't read it, I recommend you read it. I have read it twice. So I will just tell you now that it's a fine job they're doing out there with, planning and gathering requirements necessary to make sure that Puerto Rico has a strategy to move forward. Let's go ahead and dive into the letter from the governor to the president that was actually pushed out to the president's office in November 2017 on day 13. The Honorable Donald J. Trump, the President of the United States, address here at the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20500. And this is from the governor of Puerto Rico himself. Dear Mr. President, I thank you again for your leadership and action on the emergency supplemental package that you signed into law on October 26, 2017. That package represented a critical first step by your administration and Congress to address the most immediate emergency needs in Puerto Rico. As you are aware, much more remains to be done in order to stabilize Puerto Rico and set the island on a path to full recovery and reconstruction. The scale and scope of the catastrophe in Puerto Rico in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria knows no historic precedent. The island-wide devastation presents an extraordinary challenge to the American citizens of Puerto Rico, our local government, and to the federal government. A challenge that I am certain we can overcome together, as the United States is the undeniable world leader in disaster response, and the resolve of the people of Puerto Rico is strong. As you know, the devastation in Puerto Rico has strained resources beyond FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund and associated programs. To support the resiliency and mitigation efforts necessary for the reconstruction phase of Puerto Rico, we are calling upon your administration to request an emergency supplemental appropriation bill that addresses our unique unmet needs with strength and expediency. Specifically, the people of Puerto Rico respectfully request that Congress provide $30 billion within the FEMA Disaster Recovery Fund to recover critical infrastructure, $46 billion to restore housing and economic viability through community development block grant, disaster recovery program, and $17.9 billion in other federal grant programs for long-term recovery with the intent to reconstruct a stronger, more resilient Puerto Rico. In addition, based on the per capita financial impacts of our recovery efforts across the island, consistent with the historical precedents of Hurricane Andrews and Katrina, Puerto Rico requests congressional authorization of 100% funding for Stafford Act programs. With the required use of the Section 428 of the Stafford Act for permanent work under FEMA, the overall public assistance funding will be capped to the mutually agreed upon estimates. Furthermore, additional funding will be needed through the Community Disaster Loan Program to overcome the liquidity needs of the government of Puerto Rico and our local municipalities. Data on the amounts needed from this funding source will be provided to your administration and to Congress as soon as it becomes available. This is a transformative moment in the history of Puerto Rico. We recognize that your leadership, along with that of leaders from both parties, will be essential to our recovery and the future economic and fiscal health of the island. To that end, we are committed to fully engaging leaders from the private sector and the non-governmental organizations in the design and implementation of this rebuilding program. We build back better, not just in terms of the physical and economic reconstruction of the island, but through a true public-private partnership with a process that is open, transparent, and accountable to our community, to the federal government and the American people, who are showing such tremendous and heartfelt support for our efforts. With sustained federal assistance and your leadership and support, I am confident that in time, the people of Puerto Rico will recover and grow stronger than ever. Sincerely, Ricardo Rosello. This is the letter that was sent over to the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and it was a fine letter. And I will tell you that I have some work that needs to be done in the United States. And one of these projects that we need to get involved as an American people is going to be Puerto Rico. So let's go ahead and just continue forward. There are 16 critical infrastructure sectors that have been defined by the Department of Homeland Security. I believe that this overall strategy was framed within that same context to identify the sectoral impacts across Puerto Rico. So we have impacts in housing, the power grid, health and healthcare, agriculture, social services, sanitary sewer, environmental and natural resource issues that have actually yet to be solved. And a lot of funding is going to be required in order for these efforts to move forward. I'll just let you know some of the requested amounts for funding are going to come based on this strategy from different sources so that we get agencies involved, such as Health and Human Services, such as the Department of Homeland Security, such as the Department of Labor, to pay for specific efforts within their sector. So if you, again, pointing you back to the Build Back Better strategy, you can look it up online, but I'm going to keep moving forward just so we can kind of get into this document. So I kind of want to let you all know what's going on here. We've got a serious disaster, and you all have seen some of the pictures, some of the video footage that's been shared. A lot of folks have been involved. The problem is the red tape. The problem is the bureaucracy. And again, I deal with the bureaucracy quite often. And it's not just an emotional need to help Puerto Rico. It is a need to develop a strategy that can be executed at a tactical, operational, and strategic objective. And that is why I am here with my team who've helped me put together this overall discussion as we've spent the entire month and months before that to get ready in preparation for this discussion. So again, thank you to the governor. We look forward to reaching out to you, but I wanted to share this with the American people and give them some of the information about some of the sectoral impacts. So what happened with the impact to housing? We've got pictures here of some of the impacts there, and there are a lot of people out there who are unable to sleep at night, primarily because they don't have a shelter, they don't have a place to go. And that's with families who've got young children, you've got senior citizens out there, and it is just unfortunate because we don't have the resources to actually navigate the bureaucracy. So 472,000 housing units have received major damage or were destroyed by the actual hurricane. You know, that's almost half of a million. That's a lot of people. And 1 million Puerto Rican households have applied for FEMA individual assistance. Again, it's not easy to service and provide the resources to get back to 1 million people, but these are the realities of what is going on, and our fellow citizens out there need help. They need help now, and as every day passes, we lose people each day. So it is our job to make sure that we develop a strategy that can be executed. So in order for the recovery effort to move forward in full, the governor of Puerto Rico has asked for $31 billion plus to help reconstruct this particular sector due to the impacts and the assessments there. And it's not looking too good, but we need to have that discussion. And again, we're ready to engage and help the governor with those efforts there. The impact, another sectoral impact, is the impact to the power grid. Many of you know there's a lot of different problems with the power grid, even here within states, let's say Virginia, you know, making sure that we have robust systems and technologies to keep up with the 21st century. Also facing cybersecurity impacts there and different vulnerabilities that exist. So Puerto Rico is currently having a really big problem with just getting the infrastructure up and running. And just to let you know, right here, generating facilities include right now 6 fossils and 21 hydroelectric power plants owned and operated by the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority. So again, the island is not ready to stand up as far as providing the service for electricity for the citizens. We need to get out there to help rebuild that critical infrastructure. And again, the plan is not going to be an overnight plan, but we do need to develop project work based work breakdown structures to lay out the work over the fiscal year 18, moving forward out there to the 10-year recovery effort. But we need people on ground to make sure that those milestones are being accomplished day in and day out. It is very critical that you put PMs and portfolio managers out there, and we, again, are ready to assist the governor with the portfolio management effort. So it's all broken out, the power grid and resiliency investments and what's asked for in the funding piece, and there's also some funding there as far as being requested for off-grid energy projects. So I think Elon Musk has already started talking from a Tesla big giant corporation perspective and being able to provide a new energy source, battery powered, in order to help rebuild that critical infrastructure. So that's just 2 of the impacts in the sectors there. We're moving into impact to health. Health is a very big concern when you don't have the facilities and resources and the personnel on ground to be able to help our senior citizens who need medicine, to help our young kids who've got asthma, the surgeries that need to happen, and all of that is a big situation. Right now, there are 68 hospitals and 178 health clinics across the island. They've experienced significant structural damage, so that's not going to be good. So there is United States Navy deployed to hospital ship comfort to help the effort of medical engagements there. So that's very important. But we've got problems in Puerto Rico. Right here it states Puerto Rico should also expect increased morbidity and mortality of those suffering from chronic diseases such as asthma, kidney failure, and hypertension. So we have a lot of people out there right now that need our assistance, and we're hoping and to put together a strategy to be effective there. But the requested amount, Mr. President and the administration, as per what's laid out in this strategy, is again $14 billion. We do have legal services, and I rely on my legal services to navigate the PROMESA discussion with the United States Department of Treasury. However, that will be for a separate discussion at a later time. This is just an overall summary of what has been laid out here in the Build Back Better Puerto Rico strategy here. So Medicaid assistance is critical. Right here in Virginia, we had a big Medicaid discussion. We needed a lot of low-income families that were unable to provide for their families, send them to the doctor, afford to pay the bills. We had that same issue right here in Virginia. I'll tell you right now, United States, we got the same issue right there as been laid out here in Puerto Rico. And if we don't get our folks help out there, we're going to leave our citizens to die. And that is not the American way. That is not the way we do things here in the United States of America. We are going to do something and help our fellow citizens in whatever we can possibly do. So we need to address these things from a sectoral categorization of how we're going to go forward. So Medicaid assistance, they're asking for in this particular plan about $11 billion. That's a lot of money. These are not just zeros. These are serious and real numbers that need to be managed properly in order for us to meet our deadlines here. So hospital improvements, state emergency stockpile, and that is essentially just having the resources in warehouses, your ibuprofen, your medical equipment, and things of that nature. In the case that there is an emergency, the island can sustain for times like this when we can't get to our folks. So again, there's a lot of things that need to be discussed. So that's just the public health sector side of the house. We're moving into the impact to agriculture. Let me tell you, if you don't have the critical infrastructure in place to feed the population, to make sure that there's a healthy resource there for people to have grains and water and food and things like that from the livestock, you are going to have to find ways to feed your family, to distribute food out to centers where folks can get the food and resources. So the agriculture critical infrastructure is devastated, it's destroyed. 80% of the crop value on the island has been destroyed. $250 million in revenue that was generated from just that sector alone. So again, when we start looking at the funding streams here, we got to understand that the economic stability of Puerto Rico is actually not moving. So that money that you would normally get from economic activity and the micro and macro level of the discussion is not currently happening, right? So we're at a standstill until we can get these operations up and running. But again, that's just the agricultural side of the house, and it's a lot more complicated than just that. But moving forward into the next sector, social impact. We've got people out there that have placed help on top of their homes. They're looking for assistance. We need to make sure we've got a joint task force effort here, but we'll get into that when we speak particularly to the governor there and the president of the United States and the administration officials responsible for making these particular decisions. But again, the social services aspect of it, there's a lot of psychological impacts there in Puerto Rico. We were just looking at, just recently, a suicide call center. Who would have known that there was a suicide call center stood up and people were calling in and saying, hey, I'm thinking of jumping off my roof. I'm thinking of doing whatever's necessary to survive. So that right there is an issue that we need to address, because the psychological impacts of a hurricane disaster, without being on ground, we may not be able to understand it. But I have been to third world countries and I have not seen anything of this magnitude, and we've got to get involved. But the Family Integrated Services Program, they're looking for funding there. Assistance for homeless youth. We have youth there that are actually homeless right now on the island and have nowhere to go. And this is something that we need to address. These young children out there, little girls that are my little girl's age, are out there. My little girl's Puerto Rican. This is why I'm so invested, but I'm invested as an American citizen, a father, and a caring person, because we can't sit by and allow this to happen without getting engaged. So we've got assistance that needs to be found out in regards to the homeless youth piece. And then we've got schools that have closed down in Puerto Rico. So, every day when you go out, use a lifestyle. In order for you to mature as a United States citizen and get back to your community, it's that natural development process that allows a person to be able to join society, compete, and effectively give back to their community, and as far as education, innovation, and things of that nature. So we need to address that. The schools are not operational. There's a lot of structural damage there. We need to get involved. The impact to the economy, as we already touched lightly, the revenue streams that were already coming in from just daily economic activity, small businesses, Defense Department, agriculture, our federal, local, and state partners out there working together in Puerto Rico, the economic activity is moving very slow, primarily because we're trying to get the funding released in order for this to be rebuilt, the critical infrastructure. So we need economic development plans post-disaster that will allow us to advance our growth discussions there in Puerto Rico. So again, we're going to have to retrain the whole entire workforce to be prepared after that disaster. So the small business grants, the fishing industry recovery and restoration piece, there's a lot of things, the entrepreneurship initiatives that are requesting, the governor's office requesting funding from that. And again, if you take a look at this document, you will see that there is an added benefit in each and one of these initiatives to help our fellow American citizens join society, become a part of the United States. And again, I will tell you this, it doesn't end there. We've got a long road to recovery. Let's go into the next piece. So the impact to communications, there's cell phone towers, and you pick your phones up, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on LinkedIn, you're doing all that stuff, and that's how you communicate. Well, we've got in Puerto Rico a very big communication infrastructure problem. 91% of the cellular towers were lost due to the damages in the hurricane. So a lot of things in that regard need to be fixed, and they're requesting, of course, from the governor's office, based on their strategies, about $1 billion, which is fair. But the most important thing is that when they rebuild that critical infrastructure to allow for communication, that it is robust. It's 21st century. It can be protected from cyber threats. And I think it's a national security discussion as well as a homeland security discussion to ensure that this plan is assessed, funded to the best of our abilities. But again, these are the problems that we're facing, and every day it is compounding over time to become a larger issue. The next sector, impacts to roads and bridges. There are roads that are used for everyday life to travel and meet family and friends and get to work, do your normal daily things in life. That is just completely destroyed. It says here nearly 16,700 miles of transportation network has been impacted. I run 2 miles a day out there on the treadmill, And that's just 13 minutes. That's me out there trying to get my body in shape. But this is 16,700 miles of transportation infrastructure that has been impacted. So I couldn't even run that in a day, which means that it is a very large impact to the ability to maneuver around Puerto Rico and reach specific particular areas that need our help. So bridge reconstruction is in this plan to be funded, roads and things of that nature. And it's going to be a collaborative effort between the public and the private sector, but we've got a lot of political and business and public sector issues that we need to iron out. So again, moving forward, the impacts to the ports and airports. The San Juan Airport, I believe, is the central point there. So people are coming in at the San Juan Airport, but there are some other airports that can be leveraged in order to, fly in resources and such. But there's so much damage that we need to get involved and fix, particularly that critical infrastructure. And again, it's always innovation. We're making sure that if another hurricane comes, that we're building to compliance. Regulatory compliance I'm not a big regulation person, but sometimes regulation and compliance is critical, primarily because you're building to a standard to effectively survive a hurricane of such magnitude. And again, a lot of Puerto Rico, we'll just make this statement here, low-income families have been impacted substantially in comparison to the suburban neighborhoods. So again, this has always been the discussion of low-income families who need help and have had to suffer. And I grew up the same exact way of being in a low-income family and having to rely on primitive means to survive. So I am invested again in that regard. And I can't say that I understand completely from a hurricane impact perspective, but as a low-income person, I understand the struggle. And this is compounded low-income struggle based on the ability to afford to relocate, to afford to buy the things that you need to provide for your family on a daily, when all you can do is pick up your clothes on your back with your child and you relocate. You leave everything behind. And that's what happened to the people of Puerto Rico, predominantly in the low-income neighborhoods. And we need to get involved now and be the voice for those people, because again, that's our job as American citizens. So rehabilitation of the ports, regional airports and things like that, so we can get back operational. Now, the public buildings have been impacted. When you go to Washington, D.C., public buildings in there for use, FEMA, IA Secret Service, all these different public buildings are used to coordinate different missions and efforts to move the United States forward. So in Puerto Rico, the public buildings have been destroyed. So we've already kind of talked about that, but there's a lot of things here that need to be developed. And then within the communities themselves, there's community centers that are used just for quality of life and to make sure that people have a place there they can do recreational activities for the children. Again, that needs to be discussed here as well. So we are, again, ready to get involved. Now, there's another impact to another sector, water and water control facilities. The movement of water so that you can turn on your faucet, to be able to pour yourself a glass of water. Well, in Puerto Rico, you can't do that in some areas. So it says here that there's about 126 water treatment plants, 8 dams, and it provides about 646 million gallons of potable water per day. And it seems as if right now we're not able to even provide potable water to Puerto Rico, which means that you can't drink it. You may not even be able to bathe in it, because again, it will expose you to particular risk, disease, and things of that nature. So the governor's office has requested $1 billion plus in order to get this operational. And this is highly critical. Water infrastructure rehabilitation, reservoirs, dams are critical. So again, that's that sector, and we need to get involved. Now, the sanitary sewer and storm drainage, folks, when you use the latrine in military terms, the bathroom, that sewage has to go somewhere. In Puerto Rico, that sewage is, it may not be going to a place where it's being filtered and handled correctly. So again, those facilities need to be repaired, or we are at risk of extreme infestations, rodents, things of that nature that will actually accelerate outbreaks of different viruses. And then aside from the medical piece, we're already dealing with the Zika discussion as well. So again, this is going to continue to compound if we are not involved in ensuring we're solving these issues. And 20,000 miles of pipelines, for the sewer and storm drainage. So let's talk about these things. Let's get it out here. Let's get involved as American citizens. So again, Let's talk about the next sector is the impact to education in schools. Well, again, school is critical. It's very important. You send your kids to school to learn, to be prepared to join the workforce, and to advance their communities. The schools are no longer operational in some areas. So the teachers aren't even able to go to the schools and help children. They can't provide those lunches. And then there's, again, a discussion of how the children feel traveling to the school, logistics and school buses and things of this nature. Here in Arlington, we have the art system, and some of the young kids, they will leverage that. But translating that over to Puerto Rico, we can't even do that and get our children to the right area to be able to go to school. And there's a problem as well. We won't go into it right now from a law enforcement perspective, but again, we'll address the government of Puerto Rico and the governor's office in regards to how we can assist with the law enforcement piece and provide the necessary services to secure communities while we go forward with this. So again, that's that. Now, the impact to environment and natural resources. I mean, Virginia here, we've got a beautiful, beautiful environment. We've traveled throughout Virginia and other few states, and I will tell you that Puerto Rico is beautiful. Puerto Rico is a very beautiful place, and if you've been able to go or see it from a distance, we need to restore it back to its prime condition because, again, it has so much to offer. The people are great. The culture is great. I will tell you right now, I can't wait to get the arroz con dulces, pollo guisado. These are my favorite foods, and plátanos. So I can't wait to go there and share that with the people of Puerto Rico and sit there and learn that what's going on there firsthand and bear some of that burden, because I'm not the type of person that will sit out. I want to be in the fight, roll the sleeves up and see what's going on. The military trained me for that. And I want to be able to tell the people of Puerto Rico that America has your back and we will stop at nothing to protect and get this infrastructure going. So again, the environment has been impacted, landfills, coastal zone recovery, erosion. So from the hurricane has impacted a lot of things there. So we've got to modernize, and make sure that we're prepared for a robust discussion to fund these particular plans. And these, again, are plans that will help our people in Puerto Rico. That is a high-level summary of the Build Back Better Puerto Rico strategy to make sure that our folks in Puerto Rico have what they need. So again, Governor Ricardo Rosello, I really appreciate the work that you're doing out there, and I can't wait to meet you in person, to talk to your people. We're going to be reaching out directly after this, and we hope you continue to lead in a firm way. Make sure that you are continuing forward, because again, this will be a long-term to recovery. I know that you already know this, but I'm just saying this because I want to make sure that our people here outside of Puerto Rico understand the gravity of this effort, and we look forward. God bless you and the people of Puerto Rico. God bless the President of the United States, and God bless the people right here in the United States and abroad. Thank you all. We look forward to talking with you all. Stay involved. Never forget, we are Americans, and we must protect the American people.